To gain a greater insight into the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, I'm on my way to meet with Vania Gay, a renowned Blue Badge tour guide. Vania, why have you brought me to this establishment to tell me about the history of Chelsea?
Well, because it has been here not just nearly 100 years, but it is still a family-run business. And there are not many of those still in London.
Ah, OK, because it also gets asked on the knowledge. Wars, Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Yes. But I think there's a lot of stuff in Chelsea that's even older than that. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Chelsea evolved from a small settlement from the Anglo-Saxon times. So we're talking about 9th century AD. And then from rural and a very small fishing village, because of course Chelsea was by the river. And then became a bit more popular when Sir Thomas More moved to the area. He was Chancellor to the King Henry VIII. Then we get into the 17th century, when Charles II comes to the throne. And in 1660, he built King's Road. He could then go from Whitehall Palace to Hampton Court Palace. And the road, believe it or not, was private until 1830s.
Really? So the King's Road was a private road till the 1830s?
Yes, you need a token, a metal token with the picture of the head of the king on it to go through it. The 19th century, if we move on, then became a home for writers, for artists, for radicals. Blue packs is a wonderful way of triggering your memory because they connect the building with someone who has lived or worked there. So we had suffragettes, Sylvia Pankhurst living here, writers such as Oscar Wilde, George Eliot, and artists Turner. Turner loved being by the river, and Rossetti, member of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, and more recently Mick Jagger. By the river for artists, it is a wonderful place to be. The whole area really developed thanks to two families. And we see, as you walk along or drive along Chelsea, two names a lot, Hans Sloane and Cadogan. Hans Sloane was a physician to three monarchs and wonderful man, and he left the core of his wonderful, vast collection to the British Museum.
Oh, okay.
His younger daughter married within the Cadogan family to one of the Cadogan children, and then they started developing the area, and so that's why you see Cadogan a lot.
The King's Road is synonymous with shopping. Can you tell me something about that, how that happened and why it's so, do you think?
Yes, we cannot mention King's Road without going back in time in the 60s when the first boutique in London opened here by Mary Quant. She rebelled against the establishment, a stiff way of dressing, and invented the hot pants and miniskirt. And then we move a decade later, we had Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren starting the punk movement. If we move away from King's Road, we get into Portobello Market, is the most famous market. It is the largest antiques market in the country, and that the other days you'd find second-hand books or second-hand items.
What's the story behind the fact that it's now the sort of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea? When did they sort of merge together to become one district?
In 1689, when King William moved to the area, then Kensington Gardens was developed around the palace, and Queen Victoria was born in that palace and lived there until she was 18. And after her death, Kensington received the name of Royal Kensington. And in 1965, Kensington and Chelsea were married as Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. Chelsea Royal Hospital is probably the most important building in Chelsea. It was founded by King Charles II in the late 1600s for soldiers after they retired, and built by our great architect of that time, Sir Christopher Wren, famous among many other buildings. So whoever lives there are called Chelsea pensioners.
Right.
And you recognize them immediately by their long scarlet coat, which dates from the 1700s, the design, and the tricorn black hat, and since 2009 they accept women now.
Oh, do they? That's very interesting.
It's extensive grounds within the Royal Hospital, and the Chelsea Flower Show happens there since 1913 every year. It's for 5 days, and the first day is only special guests such as the royal family.
Could you tell me something about the museums in Kensington?
In age 51 we had a great exhibition in London, and organized mainly one of the brains behind was Prince Albert. Over 6 million people attended and made a profit. And Prince Albert, with the profit, bought 87 acres of land in an area now known as Albertopolis. And the idea was to build institutions and museums to educate the people. We have the Victoria and Albert Museum, the largest arts and design museums of the world. We have the National History Museum, and we have the Science Museum, 7 floors of display, from steam engines to spacecrafts, and all free.
Thank you so much indeed for your
conversation. Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
You've enlightened me. Next time I drive through Kensington and Chelsea, I'll see it from a completely different angle.